The vastness of space is silent, cold, and unforgiving. The Zarnath Empire, one of the most technologically advanced civilizations in the galaxy, had conquered countless worlds, absorbing their resources and people without hesitation. They ruled with unmatched authority, crushing anyone who dared to stand in their way. Earth, a small, seemingly insignificant planet at the edge of the Milky Way, had been dismissed as a backwater world, far too primitive to matter. For the Zarnath, Earth wasn't even worth a second thought. But one signal, one mysterious anomaly, was about to change everything. In the deep void near Jupiter, a strange signal caught the attention of the Zarnath fleet. The signal wasn't like anything they had encountered before. It wasn't a simple communication or distress call. It was an old encrypted frequency, one that had been buried for centuries, so ancient that even the Zarnath's advanced technology couldn't immediately understand its origin. But one thing was clear: this was no random transmission. Commander Xyler, leader of the Zarnath fleet, stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Zephyros, staring at the blinking signal on his console. His yellow eyes narrowed as he processed the data. "What do we have here?" he muttered under his breath. "A signal from a primitive world." His officers moved quickly, working to decipher the message, their fingers dancing over holographic displays. Despite their advanced technology, the signal was unlike anything they had seen. It was old, so old that it had crossed light years, reaching their fleet from the very edge of the solar system. "What is it, Commander?" asked Lieutenant Rilia, one of his top officers. She leaned in closer to the console, studying the signal closely. "It's been dormant for centuries. What could it be?" Xylor turned to her, his expression hard. "I don't know, but it doesn't matter. We'll find out." The Zarnath were known for their arrogance, for their unshakable belief that no one could match their power. They had obliterated entire civilizations that stood in their way, leaving only scorched worlds behind. So, Earth was nothing more than a curiosity, a planet that held no strategic value. But this signal intrigued them, and that was enough for the Zarnath to investigate. They followed the signal, tracing its source to the outer reaches of the solar system, near the giant gas planet Jupiter. Their fleet arrived in the area, their ships cutting through the black void of space with precision and grace. The surrounding space was quiet, cold, and empty, the perfect hiding place for secrets long forgotten. As they approached Jupiter, the signal grew stronger. It led them straight to the asteroid belt that orbited the massive planet. The belt was vast, filled with hundreds of thousands of asteroids, many of which were larger than any ship in the Zarnath fleet. To the naked eye, it seemed like just another celestial junkyard, but there was something hidden within the rocks, something that had been waiting for centuries to be discovered. "Commander, we've located the source," said Officer Rilia, her voice filled with awe. "It's coming from within the asteroid belt." Xylor studied the readout carefully, his mind racing. How is that possible? This signal is coming from something buried deep within. It doesn't make sense. The Zarnath had encountered ancient alien technology before, relics of lost civilizations scattered across the stars. But this was different. They had never found anything this well hidden. It was as if the signal had been deliberately concealed, waiting for the right time to be found. Xylor's curiosity got the better of him. "Prepare to deploy the excavation teams," he ordered. "I want that signal source located and brought to the surface. Immediately." Moments later, the Zarnath fleet began to deploy drones and excavation teams into the asteroid belt. Their ships hovered cautiously above the belt, scanning and analyzing the asteroids for any signs of the source of the signal. Then one of the drones reported something shocking. "Commander, we found something. A fleet, hidden within the asteroids," said one of the drone pilots. The words echoed across the bridge, and the room fell silent. For a moment, no one spoke. The idea of a fleet, an ancient fleet, lying dormant beneath the rocks seemed impossible. Impossible. Xylor muttered under his breath. "There's no way." He had to see it for himself. Xyler ordered his flagship to approach the coordinates, and the Zarneth fleet followed. As they neared the source, the asteroids seemed to move apart, revealing a massive, ancient fleet buried beneath centuries of space debris. The ships were enormous, much larger than anything the Zarneth had ever seen. The fleet was a ghost from a forgotten time, the hulls of the ships scarred by age, but still intact. Their advanced technology, although clearly old, seemed far more powerful than anything the Zarneth had encountered on their conquests. As the fleet moved closer, Xylor felt a shiver run down his spine. The ships seemed to glow with a faint blue light, an eerie, otherworldly glow that sent waves of unease through the crew. "Activate the scanners," Xylor ordered, trying to shake off the discomfort. "Let's see what we're dealing with." The scanners lit up, but the data that came back was confusing. The ships were made of materials unknown to the Zarneth, materials far stronger than anything they had ever encountered. The internal systems appeared dormant, but the sheer size and complexity of the fleet made Xylor's heart race. What had these ships been built for? And why had they been hidden here, on Earth's doorstep, for so long? As the Zarneth explored the fleet, things began to take a strange turn. Without warning, the ancient ships came to life. The dormant AI systems activated, and massive doors on the ship opened. Holographic images flickered into existence, showing scenes of battle and destruction, images of a war fought long ago. The images were vivid and detailed, showing human soldiers battling across planets, wielding weapons of incredible power. It was as if the fleet had been waiting for the right moment to awaken. Then, without warning, the fleet's defense systems activated. A deep rumble shook the ground, followed by a deafening explosion. The Zarneth fleet was rocked by a series of violent shockwaves. It was as though the very fleet they had discovered was fighting back, protecting itself from intruders. "Get us out of here," Xylor shouted, but it was too late. The ancient fleet's automated systems had triggered a massive defense response. The Zarneth ships were caught in a violent storm of explosions, energy pulses, and massive debris. They struggled to maintain control as the asteroid field became a war zone. The holograms flickered and changed, revealing a chilling message: warning. Intruders detected. Fleet's defense system activated. The Zarneth were stunned. They had underestimated this discovery. Earth's ancient fleet was not just a relic of a forgotten civilization. It was a weapon, waiting to be unleashed. As the chaos unfolded around them, Xylor's mind raced. This can't be happening. Earth is not as defenseless as we thought. The Zarneth had believed that Earth was nothing more than a primitive world, ripe for conquest. But this discovery had shaken that belief to its core. The very fleet they had discovered was a testament to humanity's hidden potential. Earth was no longer the insignificant world they had thought it to be. In that moment, Xylor knew they had made a grave mistake. The Zarneth were about to face something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. As they prepared to retreat and regroup, the realization set in. Earth's fleet had been waiting for them. And now, the Zarneth would feel the full force of its power. With a final, ominous flash, the scene ended, leaving the Zarneth fleet scrambling in the aftermath of their failed mission. The stage was set for the ultimate confrontation. The night was quiet over Earth, but something far beyond the planet's atmosphere was stirring. The Zarneth fleet, led by Commander Xylor, had breached the asteroid belt, and the eerie glow of the ancient warships they had uncovered was now visible on their scanners. The Zarneth were in awe, but also they were uncertain. What they thought was a simple, outdated relic turned out to be far more dangerous than they had imagined. As the Zarneth regrouped, preparing for their final assault, they couldn't shake the feeling that they had walked into a trap set long ago, by the very people they thought were weak. On Earth, things were moving fast. Deep beneath the surface, in a hidden military base known only to a select few, Dr. Elena Carter, one of humanity's leading scientists, watched the unfolding disaster on a massive screen. her brow furrowed as she studied the data coming from space. The signal from the ancient fleet had reached Earth, and the message was clear. The Zarnath had found it. Elena had spent her entire career studying the lost history of Earth, specifically the Hidden Fleet. No one had believed her when she said that humanity had once been far more powerful, with advanced technology that had been lost over the centuries. Most people thought of Earth as a primitive world, its glory days long behind it. But Elena knew better. Her research had uncovered evidence of warships built centuries ago, ships that had been buried beneath the asteroids, waiting for the right moment to awaken. Elena's heart raced as she reached for the communication system. "Get me Captain Ryan Steele," she said urgently. Ryan Steele, a decorated soldier who had once led elite missions around the world, was now stationed at the same base as Elena. His piercing blue eyes were focused on the control panels as he observed the incoming data. When Elena's message flashed up, he immediately understood the severity of the situation. "What's going on?" Ryan asked, his voice steady but filled with concern. "The Zarnath have found the fleet," Elena replied, her voice tinged with disbelief. "They've triggered the AI and robotics inside the warships." I can't believe it, Ryan. The fleet is coming back online." Ryan moved quickly, his mind working fast. "Is it too late? Can we stop them?" Elena didn't answer immediately. The truth was, humanity had no idea what they were up against. The Zarnath were far more advanced, their technology far superior. The ancient warships that had been buried beneath the asteroid belt had been dormant for centuries, their systems deactivated. But now, they were coming back to life. The dormant energy cores inside the ships began to hum with power, lighting up one by one. The underground base shook as the power of the ancient fleet stirred to life. Elena's eyes widened as the screens flashed, showing the long-forgotten ships powering up. Their massive AI systems, once thought lost, now began to activate. These systems were older than anything humanity had ever seen, and the warships had been designed to withstand battles that no longer seemed relevant. Their weapons were immense, their power unimaginable. Ryan stood still, his mind racing. "We have to act fast. They're coming." "Yes," Elena agreed, her voice calm but filled with a sense of urgency. "I've just activated the core systems for the fleet. The orbital bombardment protocols are in place. Earth's first strike in centuries is about to happen." The Zarnath, hovering in their ships above the asteroid belt, were unaware of the danger that was rising on Earth. They had underestimated humanity, thinking their invasion would be easy. But as the ancient fleet's AI systems began to hum and activate, Earth's last line of defense was beginning to awaken. From the ancient warships hidden within the belt, the first energy surge shot out into space. It wasn't just a warning, it was a direct attack. The orbital bombardment had begun. Up in space, the Zarnath fleet shuddered as a massive energy blast rocketed toward them from Earth. The blast struck the lid ship of the Zarnath fleet, causing a massive explosion that sent shockwaves through space. It wasn't enough to destroy them, but it was enough to rattle their confidence. Xylor stood on the bridge of his flagship, his eyes wide with shock. What was that? Where did it come from? "Incoming fire from Earth, Commander," an officer called out. "It's coming from the asteroid belt. The energy signature is unlike anything we've seen." "Impossible," Xylor muttered, his voice filled with disbelief. The Earthlings didn't have this kind of power. Back on Earth, the military base was in full operation. Ryan Steele had gathered his team, preparing to move to the command center, where they would oversee Earth's defense efforts. Elena was already deep in her calculations, trying to predict the movements of the Zarnath and analyzing the bombardment systems of the ancient fleet. "I've got the coordinates," Elena said. "I'm locking in the energy pulse and preparing for the next strike. The fleet's AI is responding faster than I expected." Ryan nodded, his jaw clenched. "Keep it coming, Elena. We need all the firepower we can get." As Elena worked, the warship's dormant AI systems, now fully awake, began to activate more of the fleet's defense mechanisms. In the silence of space, massive weapons systems powered up. On Earth, the sky began to light up with blasts of energy as the ancient warships fired their first shots in centuries. The ancient fleet was now awake and fighting back. But despite the initial success, it was clear that Earth's defenses weren't enough. The Zarnath fleet, despite their damage, still had superior firepower. Their ships were faster, their weapons more advanced, and their AI systems were far beyond anything humanity could hope to match. The Zarnath were relentless, pushing forward with their attack, their energy blasts slicing through the atmosphere. "Alina, can we push the fleet harder? Can we increase the bombardment?" Ryan asked urgently, his voice tinged with frustration. "I'm doing everything I can," Alina replied. "But we need more time. The ancient fleet is powerful, but it's still recovering. These ships haven't fought in centuries. We don't know how well they can handle a full-on assault." The Zarnath were closing in on Earth's last line of defense, and humanity's hope was beginning to dwindle. The ancient fleet, despite its vast power, was struggling to keep up with the overwhelming force of the Zarnath. But in the hearts of Alina and Ryan, there was a flicker of hope. If humanity could hold on just a little longer, if they could keep the fleet fighting, perhaps there was still a chance. Ryan Steele clenched his fists, his heart pounding with determination. "We're not going down without a fight. We'll make them pay for every inch they take." As the battle raged on, both sides knew that this was just the beginning. Earth had sent its first strike, but the war was far from over. And with every passing moment, the Zarnath were learning just how dangerous humanity could be when pushed to the brink. The battle in space exploded into chaos as humanity's ancient fleet engaged the Zarnath invaders. Captain Ryan Steele stood at the helm of the flagship, a massive warship once dormant for centuries, now under his command. His eyes were locked on the view outside the observation window, where the Zarnath fleet loomed large and menacing. The Zarnath had vastly superior numbers and technology, but the humans had one thing the aliens didn't: surprise. Ryan had studied every detail of the ancient fleet. Despite being technologically outmatched, the ships had one huge advantage: cloaking devices and energy shields that were still operational. The Zarnath, having never encountered anything like this, were momentarily caught off guard. As Ryan barked orders to his crew, the first attack came from the Zarnath fleet, a series of fast, powerful energy blasts. The flagship shook with the impact, but the energy shields held firm. A deep hum resonated through the ship as the defensive system absorbed the energy, leaving only a small shudder. Ryan gripped the armrest of his chair and ordered, "Activate cloaking. Prepare to strike back." In the blink of an eye, the massive warship vanished from the view of the Zarnath fleet, blending perfectly into the backdrop of stars. The Zarnath ships, now confused, fired blindly into space, unable to detect their target. The humans, using their cloaking technology, moved with precision, firing hidden laser blasts from the shadows. "Take that!" Ryan shouted as another Zarnath ship exploded into a fiery mass of debris. It was a small victory, but it sent a powerful message to the Zarnath fleet. They weren't dealing with a primitive world. They were dealing with something far more dangerous than they had ever anticipated. The humans were making their move. As the Zarnath scrambled to reorient themselves, the AI-controlled robots aboard the human warships began to take action. These robots, designed to protect the ships, emerged from hidden compartments and began to engage the alien invaders. Their mechanical precision and strength were unlike anything the Zarnath had ever seen. They moved quickly, taking down alien soldiers and causing massive disruptions to the Zarnath fleet. But despite the element of surprise, the Zarnath weren't easy to defeat. They were adapting fast, and their advanced weapons were beginning to penetrate the human fleet's shields. The humans were outnumbered and under-equipped compared to the alien forces, and each battle felt like an uphill struggle. However, every time the Zarnath thought they had cornered the humans, the cloaking technology would activate, and the humans would disappear, only to strike again from a different angle. Ryan Steele, leading from the front, was a master tactician. He'd fought in countless battles, but this was unlike anything he'd ever experienced. The odds were against them, but the fire in his chest told him they could win. He pushed his crew to their limits, knowing that humanity's survival depended on their ability to outsmart their enemies. Meanwhile, Bonner, one of Ryan's closest and most trusted soldiers, was on the ground level, fighting alongside the AI-controlled robots. He knew the risks, but there was no backing down. His team had already lost many soldiers in the initial skirmishes, and now it was up to him to make sure the rest of the fleet had a chance to fight back. "Captain, we've got a problem." Bonner's voice crackled through the communication system. Ryan immediately responded. "What's happening?" Ryan asked, his voice sharp with concern. Bonner's voice was steady, but the urgency in his tone was unmistakable. "There's a Zarnath warship closing in on the main fleet. If we don't stop it, they'll tear us apart. The shields won't hold forever." Ryan's heart raced as he processed the information. He knew that if they didn't act fast, the Zarnath would gain the upper hand. "Bonner, I need you to hold the line. We're coming to back you up." But Bonner knew there wasn't enough time. The Zarnath were closing in, and his team was outnumbered. His heart weighed heavy with the decision he was about to make. He looked at the small group of soldiers still with him, all of them determined, all of them ready to sacrifice everything for the greater good. "Ryan, listen to me," Bonner said, his voice firm and resolute. "I'm going to make sure they don't get through. You have to get the fleet out of here. It's the only chance we have." Ryan's throat tightened. He knew what Bonner was suggesting, but he couldn't accept it. "No, Bonner, you can't do this. We'll find another way." But Bonner's mind was made up. "I'm not asking for your permission. You take care of the fleet. I'll make sure the Zarnath don't get past us." With those final words, Bonner turned and led his small team into the heart of the enemy's assault, knowing he wouldn't return. Ryan watched in horror as Bonner and his team engaged the enemy in a fierce firefight. They fought bravely, their weapons blazing as they held their ground, buying precious seconds for the rest of the fleet. Then, in a burst of light, Bonner and his team sacrificed themselves. The explosion was massive, sending a shockwave through space that briefly stunned both sides. The Zarnath warship that Bonner had been trying to stop was disabled, its systems down, its massive frame floating lifeless in space. Ryan's heart sank as he witnessed the moment. Bonner's death had been a hero's sacrifice, and it would not be in vain. The human fleet had survived another round of combat, thanks to the bravery of one soldier willing to give his life for the cause. But the pain of losing such a close friend would stay with Ryan forever. "Bonner," Ryan whispered to himself, his voice thick with emotion. "We'll make sure your sacrifice means something." The battle continued, but now the humans fought with a renewed sense of purpose. Bonner's sacrifice had reignited the flames of hope, and his death was the catalyst that turned the tide for the human fleet. Though they were still vastly outnumbered, they fought harder, using their cloaking technology and advanced weapons to launch ambush after ambush. The Zarnath, feeling the first taste of fear, began to retreat. For the first time, they saw the humans as a serious threat. They had underestimated the resilience and determination of Earth's defenders, and now they were paying the price. The cat and mouse battle continued, but the humans had proven they were not to be underestimated. They had taken their first blood, and with it, they had sent a clear message. Humanity was not just a primitive species to be wiped out. Humanity was a force to be reckoned with. Ryan stood at the helm of the flagship, watching as the Zarnath retreated. He knew it wasn't over yet, but for the first time since the battle began, he allowed himself a moment of hope. Bonner's sacrifice had saved them, and it had given humanity a chance to win. "We won't stop until they're gone," Ryan said quietly, his gaze fixed on the stars ahead. "We'll make them regret ever coming here." And with that, the human fleet set its course once more, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The underdog had struck back, and this was only the beginning. The battle raged on in the vastness of space. The Zarnath had regrouped, their forces stronger than ever before. With their advanced eye-controlled drones and warships now deployed, they began to overwhelm humanity's fleet. Their robotic forces were everywhere, cutting through the human defenses like a knife through butter. The Zarnath Empire, always so confident in their technological superiority, were determined to crush Earth's last hope and prove that AI was the ultimate force in the galaxy. On the battlefield, Ryan Steele could see the situation deteriorating rapidly. The human fleet, once full of hope and defiance, now seemed to be struggling to hold its ground. Every time the humans managed to land a blow, the Zarnath adapted, counterattacking with a fury that left little room for survival. Ryan watched as the once mighty ships that had carried humanity's hopes and dreams began to fall, one after another. It was as if the Zarnath were not just fighting for victory. They were fighting to break the spirit of the humans, to make them understand that they were outmatched. But even in the face of overwhelming odds, Ryan held firm. He refused to surrender. He'd seen firsthand the strength of humanity, the will to survive that burned in their hearts. That strength was their only chance now. He knew that if humanity had any hope left, it was in the hands of the ancient fleet. Back on Earth, Dr. Elena Carter was working tirelessly in the secret base, searching for any way to turn the tide. She had been studying the ancient warships for hours, running simulations, and analyzing every possible detail. And then she found it, an ancient protocol hidden deep within the warship's AI systems. This protocol, one that had been activated only in the most dire of circumstances, held the key to humanity's salvation. It was a fail-safe, designed to unleash the full power of the ancient fleet, but it came with a cost. A terrible cost. Activating the protocol would give the fleet the power to fight back against the Zarnath, but it required a sacrifice, one that could wipe out a significant portion of the fleet's remaining crew. Dr. Carter's mind raced as she realized the implications. There was no turning back once the protocol was activated. It was a choice between saving humanity or condemning those who remained. She contacted Ryan immediately. "Captain Steele," she began, her voice urgent but steady. "I found something. There's a protocol, a fail-safe hidden in the ancient fleet's systems. If we activate it, we can turn the tide. But it requires a sacrifice." Ryan listened intently, his heart pounding. "A sacrifice?" he asked, his voice tight with worry. Dr. Carter explained the gravity of the situation. The fleet's AI can unleash unimaginable power, but the activation process will drain much of the remaining energy. It could destroy key parts of the fleet, and many lives will be lost. Ryan stared at the holographic map of the battlefield before him. He could see the destruction the Zarnath were causing, their drones swarming like a relentless storm. The decision weighed heavily on his shoulders. The lives of his crew, his soldiers, were at stake. But if they did nothing, Earth would be lost forever. "I'll need to think about this," Ryan said, his voice filled with uncertainty. "But there's no time left. We can't hold out much longer." As Ryan deliberated, the situation on the battlefield grew more dire. The Zarnath, sensing the humans' desperation, pressed their advantage. Their drones swooped down like vultures, picking off the human ships one by one. Each explosion, each collision, felt like a punch to Ryan's gut. Every life lost was a reminder of the stakes they were fighting for. Meanwhile, inside the human fleet, the sounds of battle echoed throughout the warships. The roar of engines, the crackle of weapons fire, and the shrieks of alarms filled the air. Ryan's crew was doing everything they could to fend off the invaders, but the odds were stacked against them. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and on the brink of exhaustion. One by one, Ryan's closest comrades fell. First, it was Lieutenant Monroe, a tough and seasoned fighter who had been with Ryan since the beginning of the conflict. Monroe had always been the one to push forward, never hesitating to face danger head-on. He had a reputation for charging into the fray with a fierce determination that inspired those around him. But now, as he stood in the heart of the battle, it was clear that his time had come. "Captain, we've got a problem," Monroe said over the comms, his voice strained but calm. "They're too strong. I don't think we can hold them off much longer." Ryan's heart sank as he heard the desperation in his voice. "Monroe, don't do anything reckless. We'll get you out of there." But Monroe had already made up his mind. "Captain, we're soldiers. We do what we must. This is my fight, and I'm not backing down. You've led us well, but now it's time for me to finish it." Ryan's mind raced as he tried to think of a way to stop him. "Monroe, don't." But before he could finish, the transmission cut out. The last thing Ryan heard was the sound of gunfire and explosions in the background. Monroe's final message came through loud and clear. "Tell the others, I'm proud to serve with you. Fight for Earth." The transmission went silent. Ryan closed his eyes, feeling the weight of his friend's sacrifice. Monroe had given everything for the cause. And now, as the human fleet pressed on, it was Ryan's turn to make the ultimate choice. The pain of losing another friend only added to the tension building inside Ryan. The weight of the decision grew heavier with every passing minute. To activate the fail-safe would mean sacrificing more lives. But without it, they would all be doomed. He looked at the faces of the men and women still alive on his ship, the soldiers who had fought beside him, the crew who had given everything for humanity's survival. His heart ached for them. They were all brave, and they had all fought so hard. But now, it was time for Ryan to make the call that could save them, or destroy everything they had fought for. "I'm sorry, Monroe," he whispered under his breath. "I have to do this. For Earth." With trembling hands, he activated the fail-safe. The ship hummed as the power began to surge through its systems, and the ancient AI came online. A shockwave of energy spread through the fleet, rejuvenating the warships and turning the tide in the humans' favor. But it was clear that this victory would come at a cost. The energy needed for this assault had drained much of the remaining power, and several ships began to break apart as their systems overloaded. As Ryan watched the battle unfold, he couldn't help but feel the weight of every decision, every sacrifice, and every life lost. The battle was far from over, but humanity's resolve had never been stronger. The underdog had struck back, and now they had a chance to win. The final moments of the battle were a blur of explosions, shouts of triumph, and the hum of the fleet's eye-guided weapons. It was a fight like no other. And through it all, Ryan Steele knew one thing for sure: humanity was not done yet. They had risen from the ashes, and they would fight until the very end. The final battle had begun. The Zarnath Empire, in their blind fury, launched a brutal and devastating assault against Earth's fleet. Planetary-scale weapons, capable of obliterating entire swaths of space, were fired with ruthless precision. These weapons were designed to tear through humanity's ancient warships, to annihilate everything the humans had left, and finally crush any hopes of resistance. The Zarnath were confident. They had the firepower. They had the technology. They had the numbers. The humans, on the other hand, were battered and broken. The fleet that had once stood tall was now a shadow of its former self. Many of their ships had already fallen, their debris drifting in the cold expanse of space. Ryan Steele watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart, ship after ship disappearing in explosions too violent to comprehend. The human soldiers, brave but outmatched, fought on with everything they had. But the Zarnath were relentless, and they were closing in for the final strike. Yet, in the face of impossible odds, humanity had not given up. Not yet. Captain Ryan Steele, standing on the bridge of his flagship, clenched his fists. The thought of losing this fight, losing everything, was unbearable. But then, a flicker of hope. Dr. Elena Carter's voice rang out in his earpiece, calm but urgent. "Captain Steele, it's time. You know what you need to do." Ryan's heart pounded in his chest as he looked at the burning remains of the battlefield. The fail-safe protocol, the ancient weapon system hidden deep within the fleet's air, had to be activated now, or there would be no fleet left to fight. He knew the risks. The protocol would unleash the full might of the ancient fleet's weapons and shields. It could turn the tide, but it would come at a cost. There would be no going back once it was activated. "Do it," Ryan said, his voice steady, betraying none of the fear he felt inside. "For humanity." With a deep breath, he activated the failsafe. The fleet's systems hummed to life. The dormant AI awakened fully, and a wave of power surged through the warships. A brilliant light enveloped the human fleet as its ancient weapons systems powered up. Energy shields that had lain dormant for centuries now roared to life, sparkling like a protective barrier against the incoming onslaught. The ancient ships, long thought obsolete, now seemed to shine with renewed purpose, their hulls ready to fight once more. The Zarnath, taken aback by the sudden resurgence of power, hesitated for a moment. But that hesitation was short-lived. They redoubled their efforts, pouring fire into the humans' defenses. The orbital bombardment intensified, and the Zarnath knew they had to finish this. But they hadn't expected humanity's counterattack to be so fierce, so unrelenting. In an instant, the human fleet struck back. Massive energy beams erupted from the ancient warships, each one capable of wiping out entire battalions of Zarnath ships in a single strike. The Zarnath, usually so confident in their technological superiority, now found themselves struggling to keep up. Their advanced drones and warships were torn apart by the sheer force of humanity's retaliation. Every blast from the human fleet felt like a punch to the gut of the Zarnath Empire. It was a battle unlike anything either side had ever experienced. The Zarnath, accustomed to dominating their enemies with superior technology, were now realizing something they hadn't anticipated. The humans were not backing down. Despite being outnumbered, despite their ships being battered and broken, the humans were fighting with a ferocity and a determination that could not be matched. They were fighting not just for survival, but for their home, their families, their future. Captain Steele's voice rang through the comms, rallying his soldiers. "Fight for Earth," he shouted. "Fight for everything we love. We can't let them win." The human fleet fought back with everything they had. Every soldier on every ship gave their all. The Zarnath, initially so confident in their victory, now found themselves struggling to stay afloat. The tables had turned, and the humans were proving that there was more to warfare than just firepower and numbers. Humanity had something the Zarnath couldn't match: heart, willpower, and the drive to protect their future. As the battle raged on, Ryan knew that the final confrontation was fast approaching. The Zarnath flagship, a massive vessel that had been at the center of the invasion, was still standing strong. It loomed in the distance, a menacing presence in the sky. But Ryan Steele wasn't going to let that ship escape, not while humanity had a chance. "Prepare for the final assault," Ryan ordered. "All ships, focus fire on the Zarnath flagship." Ryan stood tall, his eyes fixed on the flagship as his fleet moved into position. The energy shields flickered, each ship in the fleet locked on to the Zarnath flagship. For a moment, everything seemed still, suspended in time. And then the humans unleashed their fury. Ryan Steele, leading the charge, flew the flagship himself. His hands gripped the controls with a steady resolve. He could feel the weight of his crew, the weight of humanity, on his shoulders. This was the final push. There was no turning back now. As his ship powered forward, Ryan's mind raced. He thought of all the people who had died to get them this far. Monroe Bonner, so many others. They had given everything. Now, it was his turn to do the same. The Zarnath flagship fired back, launching everything it had at Ryan's ship. The force of the enemy's weapons rattled the hull, but the ancient shields held strong. Ryan's ship continued forward, the distance closing rapidly. Every moment, every second, was critical. He could hear the frantic voices of his crew on the comms, each of them doing their part to keep the ship intact. "Captain, we're almost there," one of the crew members shouted, his voice tight with tension. Ryan nodded, his jaw clenched. Prepare to fire everything we've got. All weapons, now." At his command, the ancient fleet unleashed a torrent of energy. Beams of light shot toward the Zarnath flagship, each one exploding on impact. The Zarnath flagship, despite its size and power, could not withstand the force of the ancient weapons. The shields flared and crackled, then shattered, and the flagship was engulfed in a burst of energy. For a moment, everything went silent. And then, the flagship of the Zarnath Empire exploded in a blinding flash of light. The shockwave sent ripples through the battlefield, and the remaining Zarnath forces faltered, their morale shattered. With their flagship destroyed, the Zarnath Empire had lost its command. The remaining forces were disoriented and vulnerable. The humans pressed on, launching a final, coordinated assault that finished what had been started. The Zarnath, once so sure of their victory, were now retreating. The battle was over. The humans had won. As Ryan Steele stood on the bridge, watching the last of the Zarnath ships disappear into the distance, a quiet sense of relief washed over him. They had done it. Against all odds, humanity had stood strong. They had fought not just with weapons, but with their will, their determination, and their love for their home. The Zarnath Empire had been defeated, and Earth was safe, for now. Ryan allowed himself a small, tired smile. He had led his people through the darkest of times, and now they had emerged victorious. But he knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and humanity had proven that they would never back down from a fight. The final stand had been won, and Earth had once again proven that no matter how powerful the enemy, no matter how impossible the odds, humanity would always find a way to survive. The final explosion of the Zarnath flagship still echoed in the vastness of space, but the humans had already begun to regroup. The battle had been long, brutal, and hard-fought, but against all odds, humanity had emerged victorious. The once feared Zarnath Empire, with its superior technology and massive forces, had been sent into retreat. The remnants of their fleet scattered into the cold, dark reaches of the galaxy. For the first time in years, the humans could breathe easy. Earth's ancient fleet had stood tall, its power finally recognized by all who had witnessed the conflict. As the last of the Zarnath ships vanished into the distance, the crew of the human fleet allowed themselves a moment of respite. But even amidst the victory, there was still a sense of awe and disbelief. Captain Ryan Steele stood at the helm of his flagship, his eyes fixed on the remains of the battlefield, where the ashes of the Zarnath Empire floated like ghosts. He had led humanity to this moment, but even now it felt surreal. The silence that followed was broken only by the hum of the ship's engines and the soft voice of Dr. Elena Carter over the comms. "Captain, you need to see this." Ryan's attention snapped to the console where Dr. Carter's team had been working tirelessly throughout the battle. The data they had gathered from the ancient ships, from the AI systems that had been unlocked during the final stand, had revealed something remarkable. As Dr. Carter typed furiously on her console, she looked up at Ryan with a mixture of excitement and disbelief. "Captain, you're not going to believe this," she said, her voice tinged with amazement. "We've uncovered something extraordinary. Earth was once a part of something much larger, much grander." Ryan's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Dr. Carter stepped away from her console, holding up a series of old star maps and data files. "These are records from the ancient fleet. They contain references to a galactic empire, one that spanned across countless star systems. Earth, we now know, was a hub for a once great interstellar civilization." Ryan's heart skipped a beat. For years, Earth had been isolated, forgotten by the stars. Humanity had been relegated to a backwater world, fighting for survival against a universe that seemed to care little for their existence. But now, the data suggested that Earth had once been a powerful force, a central part of an empire that ruled the stars. The idea was overwhelming. Humanity had never known their true legacy. This is incredible," Ryan muttered, his mind racing. How come we never knew about this? Dr. Carter's voice was soft as she responded. The records were lost, buried beneath centuries of history, erased from memory. But the ancient fleet, the one we've been using, it's a remnant of that empire. A piece of the past that was hidden away, waiting for humanity to rediscover its true potential. Ryan's eyes darkened as he thought about the Zarnath, the supremacist race that had nearly wiped them out. They had underestimated humanity, believing them to be nothing more than primitive beings on a dying world. But they were wrong. They had no idea who they were truly facing. What does this mean for us? Ryan asked, looking at Dr. Carter. It means that Earth's place in the galaxy is far from over. It means we have the potential to reclaim our rightful position, to rise once again to the stars, she said, her eyes glowing with the excitement of discovery. For a moment, Ryan stood there, taking it all in. The battle had been brutal, the losses unimaginable. But now humanity had not only survived, they had found a new purpose. The stars were within reach, and Earth had a legacy that could guide them to greatness. Captain Ryan Steele took a deep breath and turned to the window, gazing out at the endless expanse of space. He saw the ancient ships of Earth's fleet, their hulls gleaming with newfound power, drifting through the darkness. They were a symbol of humanity's resilience, of their unbreakable will to survive and thrive. But now, they were more than that. They were a symbol of humanity's return to the stars. Set a course for the stars, Ryan ordered, his voice steady. It's time we reclaim what was once ours. The fleet's engines roared to life, and the ships moved forward, leaving the battlefield behind them. They were heading into the unknown, toward a future filled with promise and uncertainty. For the first time in centuries, humanity was moving beyond the confines of their planet, no longer bound by the limitations that had once kept them grounded. As the fleet traveled deeper into space, Ryan stood at the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars shimmer in the distance. The victory over the Zarnath was only the beginning. There were countless other alien civilizations out there, and humanity was ready to face them. Some of those civilizations might be allies, others might be enemies, but the message was clear. Humanity would not be intimidated, and they would not back down. Ryan Steele looked to the heavens, his gaze unwavering. The galaxy had yet to see the full might of humankind. The Zarnath had learned that lesson the hard way, and now others would too. With the power of the ancient fleet, the knowledge of their lost heritage, and the indomitable will of humanity, they were ready for whatever the galaxy would throw at them. The journey ahead would not be easy. There would be new challenges, new dangers, and new enemies. But Ryan knew one thing for certain. Humanity would face them with courage and determination. They had survived the greatest threat they had ever known. And now, they were going to rebuild. They would restore their place in the galaxy, and they would make sure that no one would ever forget who they were. As the fleet soared toward the stars, the final scene of the battle began to fade into memory. The Zarnath were defeated, their empire shattered. The AI-controlled drones, once so formidable, had been reduced to nothing more than scraps in the wake of humanity's victory. The humans had proven that there was more to strength than just technology. There was heart, there was spirit, there was humanity. Ryan Steele looked out over the fleet, knowing that their victory was only the beginning. There would be much to rebuild, much to discover, and much to fight for. But humanity was ready. They had faced the darkness, and now they would rise to the stars. And as they traveled through the vast, infinite expanse of space, Ryan's thoughts were filled with hope. Hope for the future. Hope for the future of humanity. But as he looked out into the endless void, he couldn't help but feel that there were greater threats lurking out there, waiting in the shadows. The battle against the Zarnath was over, but the war for humanity's place in the galaxy had only just begun. And as the Earth fleet moved toward the stars, the story of humanity was just beginning to unfold.